23-24 was a bit of a nightmare season in the end for Swindon Town, wasn't it? It started so well. They were 10 games unbeaten at the beginning of the campaign under Michael Flynn, scoring 26 goals in those encounters, with Jake Young and Dan Kemp forming a blistering, delightful attacking duo. But 10 unbeaten turned into 12 defeats in 19, and it's that run of form that unfortunately in modern management gave Michael Flynn the sack as defensive issues started to rear their ugly heads, and so too did off-field concerns, which subsequently dominated the second half of the campaign for Town. And not only that, they had to watch their bitter rivals Oxford get promoted to the Championship, whilst watching, by the way, their former manager Scott Lindsey finish promoted with Crawley Town, with some of their former players as well, whilst Swindon themselves endured their lowest ever finish in their 145-year history. That's what they've got to recover from, as well as a plethora of off-field concerns. How do they do it? Well, that's what we're going to be discussing on this Summer Deep Dive. Yes, welcome along to the latest EFL Debate Summer Deep Dive, one of 72 we're doing across the EFL between mid-June and mid-July. Already plenty uploaded to YouTube and to Spotify, so go and check those out. Maybe subscribe and give us a review if you fancy. Once you're done with this one, for now, delighted to be joined by Swindon Town fan Ben Nicholls from the excellent Fools Rush In podcast. Ben, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time. Just talk to me about where Swindon Town are at as a club right now.
Well, I think we're at a bit of a crossroads at the minute. I think you described our recent, last season pretty well, to be quite honest. It was pretty much a disaster after a fantastic start, which was built on sand, really, with our two best players being loan players, which unfortunately was pretty obvious that they were both going to get recalled in January. It sort of fell off a cliff a little bit. Well, it happened before the January. And luckily, it was arrested slightly before we were dragged into a bit of a relegation fight at the end of the season. But the last 2 years have been nothing short of horrendous, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I think the obvious place is to start with the ownership situation, because everything that happens at a club starts from the top. Where are fans with Clem Morfuni, and has he done anything to try and address some of those concerns?
He's a bit of an enigma at the moment, to be quite honest. If we had this conversation 6-7 weeks ago, I'd been completely scathing from you, because towards the back end of this last season just gone, he arrived in the country, as you say, the back of our worst ever season. And, you're expecting a bit of accountability there, speak to the fans and just hold his hands up and say, look, I'm really, really sorry that this falls upon us and we're going to do X, Y, Z to improve things. Mm-hmm. And he sort of turned up in the country, watched the last game of the season and disappeared again without a word or interview or anything. And then there was a following month during May where there was nothing from the club at all. They had a concert that they had lined up, and that's all we heard from the club. There was no promoting season tickets. There was no word of anyone official. We didn't know what was happening with the manager situation at all, whether Gav Ganning was going to get an appointment or we were going to look for someone else. There was literally just this wall of silence coming from the club. So obviously rumours start when that sort of thing materialises. You're thinking, has Clem lost interest together? Is he going to sell the club? And no news brings rumours, and then you hear sort of bad whispers and everything coming from the club that financially we're in deep trouble and all these sorts of things, and we're facing some administration and the clubs, the serious lack of season tickets from sales from the year before, which was totally understandable from Swindon fans who basically had enough. That spilt onto this season, and we're really fearing of what this coming season might bring. But it's so when he does appear and he does emerge from nowhere and a manager turns up that's reasonably credible, that sort of shocked everyone. And we've been really busy in the transfer market since. So it's been a bit of a head scratcher, which obviously we'll talk about in a bit. But prior to June and the end of May, I was genuinely fearing the worst for our next season. I thought we were really in for a struggle.
Yeah, well, hopefully Mark Kennedy can change that. You've he's somebody who's done a solid job, I think, at Lincoln City. What sort of early impression has he made on Swindon Town?
A really good one, actually. He come in. Obviously, all managers say all the right things, and they're sort of like they're copy and paste. They all say the same thing. They're really honoured to be at the club, huge club at this level, blah blah blah. You know, the usual.
Yeah, of course.
But one thing I've been impressed of that he's obviously he's been around some of the local clubs during their end of season dues. He's been talking to a lot of supporters. He did like a day, you know, sort of answering the fans, chatting to the fans on the phones and stuff. And he's been really reaching out to the community of Swindon. I like the way he talks. His CV is impressive. Obviously, he's worked at numerous Premier League academies.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was at your Birmingham City's assistant manager, and then he took on Macclesfield, which was a bit of an interesting appointment.
They were an absolute basket case at the time.
Yeah,
very difficult to judge anyone on their time.
Yeah, so it was an odd decision there for him to go there. But then after that, he took on Lincoln City, and I think he took them to their second highest finish in 40 years. So generally quite impressed. And when I spoke to the Lincoln fans, you know, when he left the job, it wasn't really down to footballing reasons. And his footballing philosophy is of a solid backbone, solid spine, and build on from there. I think he was a little bit unlucky in his second season at Lincoln due to injuries to attacking players, which means he was forced to play quite a defensive sort of set mindset. And I'm actually for where we finished, which was 19th in League Two. It's quite a solid appointment, to be quite honest. So I'm quite happy with him. The Swindon fans are quite happy with him, and it's sort of cautiously optimistic is the word of the last few weeks, and I think that stands with Kennedy as well. It's not something to blow your socks off, but I think it's sensible, very sensible.
Let's hope that's the case. Excuse me. So I wrote down the squad. Excuse me, I got a bit of a hiccup. I wrote down the squad expecting Mark Kennedy might play 3-4-3, which is what he liked at Lincoln. But I'm thinking now the strength of the midfield actually looks like such a strong point that it might be more of a 3-5-2.
You're right there. Yes. We signed Ollie Clark, who from Mansfield. And that was a bit of an eyebrow raiser as well, because it's a very un-Swindon Town type signing, because obviously we usually bring players in who are young or unknown quantity, and we'll try and sell them on as a profit as he goes on. This is a player who's 31 years old, so obviously there's no resale value onto him, but he's also a serial experience of promotion at this level, having done it with Bristol Rovers and Mansfield. A huge amount of praise from the Mansfield fans. He got quite a big send-off from there, and they were quite disappointed to let him go. So it was like, okay, that's a good signing to start with. It's a solid one. Obviously, Offerball signed as a contract extension.
Sure.
I think that was a no-brainer, really, after being out of the game for 3 years. If he went somewhere else, he'll have to prove himself again for 4.
Yeah, exactly.
Whether at Swindon he would need to at Swindon he's already done that, and he's walked into the first team, and he's regular now, so I think it's a no-brainer to get his career back on track that he started again in Swindon. And so the midfield's the centre midfield is looking quite stronger, and in fact we've got a bit of fat to trim there, because there's probably 1 or 2 players that we can or are looking to let go if we're looking to consolidate there. But yeah, sort of 3-5-2 is sort of looking favourite at this moment, especially after we just brought 2 wing backs in. Yes,
absolutely. We might as well get into those other midfielders, because other midfield options, because I'm thinking Nnamdi Offerball might be your aggressive, powerful ball winner at the base. Yeah. You've got Ollie Clark, who brings a bit of drive going forward, and you've got Saidu Khan, who I think is probably going to be at his best when he's freed up. So that could be quite an exciting midfield trio, possibly. But then the other options are Ricky Aguar, Jake Kane, and Anton Dworzak, who can also play in defence. Do you expecting 1 or 2 of those to be offloaded or loaned out?
I think Kane's on quite a good deal when we signed him from Liverpool. We paid cash outright for him, And I think Sandro was going a bit cash crazy at the time when he was handing out deals. So I think Swindon have been looking for quite a while to find Kane a good club. And I think he's on a good deal at Swindon. So I think he'll be around for another season. Aguilar spent most of last season away on loan, non-league. When he did come back towards the back end of the season, his appearances were quite limited. He's a sort of an attacking midfielder. Wouldn't surprise me if he went away again. Anton Dorzak as well is another young lad. I think has a career in the future, or they might hang on, have a look at him for a few games, and then make a decision on him down the line. So I think he may well be moved on, sort of later on, rather than before the season starts.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to circle back to the goalkeeping position now, where the only senior option you've got there is Jack Bycroft, who had a bit of an up and down season last year, but as he showed at Stockport and maybe in one or two other games in the second half of last season, he has got some potential.
Yeah, he's a very talented goalkeeper, extremely talented goalkeeper. But obviously, he's cutting his teeth in the EFL, and you've got to be patient with young goalkeepers like this. They're going to make errors. They're going to make silly decisions at some point. I remember when we had Lawrence Figueroa, who was very much the same. Who'd be outstanding and win you games, but obviously have moments of madness. And sometimes Bycroft does, fly out of his box, or comes flying up for a cross that really shouldn't touch. So yeah, I think decision making comes with time and experience in games. I quite like him, and I think this season he'll probably, towards the back end of the season, become sort of a fan favourite. He's born in the area, local lad himself. He's a Swindon fan, so I think for that the fans will give him a little bit of extra yardage as well. So I think he'll be number one. I think we've got the young lad Redmond, who's a youth goalkeeper. He sort of came on for the second half of the last game of the season. He is a good goalkeeper, but I think he needs to. I think personally he's all right to go as a number two, but if something would happen to Bycroft, then maybe look to go in the emergency loan market and pick someone up there. But I don't see any immediate concern on that sort of area to find another goalkeeper, because Redmond's all right to back up. But again, I don't think he's good enough to be a number one yet, though.
Okay. Well, hopefully Bycroft can build on last season. So centre backs, again, I mentioned Wozniak, he can play in defence, so that would be the advantage of keeping him as another versatile option. But I suppose the big one is Ryan Delaney, because you've poached him from Newport, very experienced defender across League One and League Two.
That's again another very un-Swindon-y type signing. He's 27 years old, very experienced, promoted in League Two under Bolton a few years ago. A pretty much fan's favourite at Newport. Unfortunately, suffered an injury towards the back end of last season, but I think he was, quite popular there. Very tall, very un-Swindon-y type player, because he's more there for his aggression and his, putting his body on the line more than his being able to play the ball out the back. But I think that's a sign which Kennedy's is going to do. Really, is just going to have a strong spine. So I'm all for it. I'm really pleased for it, because it's obviously one of the Swindon's biggest Achilles last year was the amount of goals we conceded. I think League and Cup we conceded 99 in total, which is it's embarrassing, really, to be quite honest, for a club of our stature in League Two. Again, it's if we keep him fit, because obviously he's had a few troubles, I can see again another quite a solid signing, and hopefully it's one for the future. If it goes well, I can see him here for 3, 4, 5 years, because obviously he's 27 now. He's going to want to settle down at a club. And I hope it works.
Let's hope so. You mentioned there that you've kind of gone for an un-Swindon-y signing. It feels like you've been going away from the direction that we've associated with Swindon Town for maybe a couple of years now, because probably last season the appointment of Michael Flynn, you could argue, was a bit of a bit less, not quite a classic Swindon Town appointment. I'm just wondering, I kind of understand the clamour for sort of pragmatism, because I know fans probably do get a bit frustrated at still being in this league, and you kind of want that sort of short-term efficiency. At the same time, there's part of me thinking, if you want sustained success, you've got to have a real alignment right the way through the club in terms of this is how we're going to play. And I would like to see some Swindon Town kind of settle on a bit of continuity, stylistic continuity.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I think that we're sort of like scrapping away and starting the draw board again, because we are really at ground zero. I think the numbers actually of the squad, they're all right. I think we've probably got about 14, 15 players in the squad at the minute, which is about 8 or 9 more than we had this time last season. I absolutely wish so, because Swindon have an identity of being, signing quite young players, playing quite good football, bringing it out, playing from the back. And I think they are slightly going to move away from that a little bit with Kennedy. But
21 senior players by my count, by the way, Ben. Sorry, 21 senior players by my count.
21 is it? I've not counted. That's actually quite high numbers. Yeah. I think that will be shredded a little bit, but again, that's unheard of numbers for us. But I think I think the club are doing. I think to get out of this level, Crawley, I think everyone showed everyone up, but I think most of the teams that get out of this level do need sort of like a strong spine. They need some physicality there. They need players that can get stuck in. They need to, dig in and get your 1-0s when you need to. And I think it's important we do keep our flair players. I think re-signing McGurk is very important. I think he could be a very, very good player for this season. I think he was badly managed last season. I think there was games that he controlled on his own, coming fresh out of Leeds Academy. If you look back at the Gillian game on his Football League debut, scoring a wonderful goal after putting a couple of players on their backsides. The Tranmere game, he bossed one on his own. And then both those games, he was immediately dropped for a short period. I think if Kennedy is quite the good coach that he says he is, hopefully he can bring him on and being our flair player. We've still got your players like Glatzel, who I think is an outstanding talent. And we were quite, well, it was good to see him fit. He didn't suffer any more injury setbacks between when we signed him in January and the end of the season, because he had horrific time with injuries at Liverpool. But so it's good to see it, and I think he could be a little gem this season. I think with the full pre-season behind him, I think he could score some goals. We obviously need some attacking players, some attacking threat. We've got Drynan still there, but there's some holes, and we need another 10. We need some more wider players if we are going to go 3 up front. So yeah, we'll see who we bring in. But I think at the moment we're just concentrating on a spine, which is important.
Yeah, Aaron Drynan can play as an out striker. So if you were to play with a front 2, he could play alongside Glatzel. But when he played, he had a really good season for Leyton Orient. I think it was the 21-22 campaign. And he actually played, they had a target man called Harry Smith in the middle. And Drynan was the one sort of on the right. And he's got such a good work ethic. He can get up and down so quickly that sometimes a wider role can kind of work for him. So I'm sure Mark Kennedy would like his work ethic if he can have a good pre-season.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, it's good to have these versatile players within the squad. And as you say, Drynan did quite brilliantly at Orient. He won, they won the league quite. No, it's the season before actually, wasn't he? That it was with. He was the manager back then. Former Millwall one. Forgotten his name.
Neil Harris.
Was it Neil Harris?
No, sorry. Who was this with? Sorry.
He was at Leyton Orient. It was before.
Kenny Jackett.
Kenny Jackett, that's it. Yeah, it was Kenny Jackett. He was outstanding with Kenny Jackett. Obviously lost his way a little bit under Wellens, which is why he's come here. But yeah, he's got the pace, he's got the strength, and he's direct as well. So he can do those runs into the box. He can play that wide role as well. So yeah, he's going to be a useful player for us next year.
Yeah, that'd be a really interesting one. I know I've spoken to Tranmere fans who say when Paul Glatzel is fit, he's got the potential to be one of the best players in the league. Did you see any flashes of that last season?
Yes. Well, yes, his goal record's actually pretty good for a team that that quite struggled a little bit. He can also play as a number 9, or he can play that wide role as well. He was often used as that wide role. But yeah, he's quite direct. He's quite skillful. He's he's got all the attributes of being quite a good striker. He just needs game time. His record at Liverpool, the academy team was outstanding, and he did quite well on loans out to the EFL when at Tranmere, but he kept breaking down. He had issues with his hamstrings, and I think it was his knee that he's had issues. He played very few games in a period of about 2 years or so. But he came in and immediately became one of the fans' favourites, and he's a real trier as well. I think he's someone that will blossom and eventually play at a lot higher than this level. He was circled. He trained a lot with the Liverpool first team. He was on the verge of breaking through into their squad, but injuries hampered him, and I think that took quite a lot of his learning away at quite a crucial time for him. Sort of 19, 20, 21. So he's starting again, basically. But I'm quite pleased at this time, because he still might go, that we've still got him. But so fingers crossed it's a good season for him.
Yeah, let's hope so. So you've got one of the advantages of Farrell Johnson, who you've got at the back, is that he is left-footed. Ryan Delaney is left-footed as well, but I would imagine that he's one for the middle centre-back role. So do you think that there could be a space opening up for Farrell Johnson?
Well, he's an unknown quantity, really, because we signed him away, and he hadn't yet to make an EFL appearance. But he's got the model of a ball-playing centre-back. He's quite tall as well. He came on, I think, made us one substitute appearance, but then an old injury that he had when he signed sort of materialised, and they went, right, just have the rest of the season off, get absolutely right, get it fit, then come baback fully fit next season, which is this season. So I can't comment too much about him because I've only seen him the once.
Right.
But his reputation was pretty good. What I've had the feedback on him was that he's quite good. He can play also as left back as needs be as well, so he's competent on the ball. But whether he's going to be someone that he's going to be a first team player or someone that we sort of work on remains to be seen.
We'll have to wait and see on that. Obviously, someone who featured a bit more last season was Harrison Minturn. Where do you think he's at with his development?
Unfortunately, his stocks dropped a little bit towards a back season. He kind of lost his way a little bit. Unfortunately, he was relied on quite a bit, which is a bit unfair for someone so young, really on his breakthrough season. And I think from Swindon fans' point of view, he could really do with a good loan away, ideally to National League side would be brilliant. I think at Swindon he won't be a first pick, and I think he needs games. He's obviously got talent because he was monitored by Middlesbrough, and he's still obviously probably will still be on their radar. But he was lined up to go, but then got so unfortunately injured for him. So he's very talented defender. Again, competent on the ball. He can even play CDM if required. I personally think a loan would be quite good for him. But we'll see. Again, we'll see where we are with him down the line.
We'll have to wait and see. The other right side defender you've got is Udoka Godwin-Malief, one of your better players, and certainly one of your better defenders last season.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he won Player of the Season, one of the fans' favourite. Competent. He could play right wing back. He could play right centre back. Strong, quick. Loves to charge forward with the ball. Really awkward to play at because he's strong, he's quick, and when he's at full speed, he's got a good sidestep on him, so he can create space. And he's a pretty good player, and obviously a former league winner as well under Forest. So he's done well. He's someone I hope we keep hold of, because I'll be very surprised if there's not some interest between now and the beginning of September in him. But we'll see what happens, but I hope so.
Yeah, I think when he was when he was at Forest Green, there was a thought that he would probably kick on a lot further, and then didn't quite happen for him in League One. I'm sure there's various reasons for that. So hopefully he can rebuild his career with Swindon as he seems to have done so far. And then again, a little bit like we've discussed with Farrell Johnson, you've given McGregor, who's another defender, a professional contract. Excited about to see how he gets on.
Yeah, I love him. I thought it was
Oh,
brilliant.
really?
I watched him make his debut away at Walsall, his first start in professional football, and he was one of the best players on the park. He again, lad, 17 years old. He's very attacking. He loved to get stuck in. There was no, he wasn't hiding away. He just flying to tackles, and he's aggressive on the ball as well. He's direct. He get the ball, and he'd like to take players on. I can't remember who the Walsall left back was, but he sort of gave him a torrid time.
Oh, so is he a right wing back then, or
he's a right wing back, yeah.
Right wing back, okay. All right, so he'd be an option as your competition for possibly Well, I was thinking you've signed Tamise Sobowale from Shrewsbury, and you've signed Longella, who I think predominantly would see himself as a left-sided player.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see whether he can sort of make a name for himself this season.
Yeah, well, again, I'd like to see him as backup rather before he goes away anywhere. I think he's someone that's going to attract a lot of interest from a lot higher up than League 1 2. I think there was news reports today that a couple of our youngsters were being spied on by Premier League talents. And,
right.
Well, Hunt's
that's quite encouraging, isn't it?
Hunt's been linked with I think Swindon have quoted a £500 price tag on Hunt with Aston Villa, and Man United are looking at Boehm Admin, who is a Iraqi under 19 international. Right. He scored the goals against Man United in the FA Cup round because, of course, we made the FA Youth Cup. We made it to the quarterfinals. Yeah. He was sensational, and he was kind of on the verge of breaking through to the first team. So
that's very impressive for Swindon Town to reach the FA Youth Cup quarterfinal.
Yeah, well, we knocked Man United out 2-0, right. and he scored, and we also beat Sunderland, and we beat Luton as well. Yeah, so we've got
good academies. I mean, obviously, one of games.
You've got Hunt coming through, Hunt being linked to Villa. You've got Amin linked to Manchester United, McGregor. So that our youth, our academy, who've done tremendously well last year, and we're not a top grade academy. We're a League 2 club.
Yeah.
But I think we've just come across this little golden era of we've just got lucky with a few players that have come through, and I think that was the only real good part of last season. Really, was the excitement of watching these kids against play really well, and we were quite unlucky to get beaten by Bristol City in the quarterfinals. It was only 1-0 at Ashton Gate, and against a team with a higher grade academy team, and we generally pushed them all the way. So we some really good players, and this has been noticed, and this hopefully could help fund some sort of. It probably is a reason why Swindon are being quite active at the moment, because if there's deals to be done and there's things happening there, then this is probably like the purse strings have been loosened a little bit in the first team to push us on a little bit further. But hats off to all these players. But if these deals come off, then can only be good for the club, and kind of what the academies are for now, because that's what Premier League clubs do now, is they look at academy players before they get into the first team.
Yes, that's often how it works, isn't it? So Tamise Sobowale, I think Shrewsbury fans were sad to see him go, which is always quite an encouraging sign, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the first thing you do when you sign a player is if you put your name on his name in Twitter and the club name, and then you skim down and you read what fans' actual opinions are of him.
Yeah.
And it was generally, I read that they did a poll, and out of 105 fans that voted in this poll, 90% of them, so that would have been 90 of them, would rather he stayed. I think he wasn't a first team regular by any means. I think 20 or 30 appearances all season, half of whom came off the bench. But he's very aggressive. He's very tall as well. He's quite physical, which again sort of reminds me a little bit of sort of Kevin Amankwa days back in but his best attributes are going forward rather than defending. But again, there's something to work on there. He's reasonably young. Again, from non-league, originally from Ireland, and then got the move to Shrewsbury. And he's done all right there, but I think he'd be looking to nail down a regular place at Swindon, and hopefully he does quite well.
Yeah, let's hope so. I guess you've got the options of having attacking wing back. So you mentioned Sobowale there, and then you've also signed Rosaire Longello as well, who's another quite an attack-minded wing back.
Yeah, well, Andy Holt, the acting chairman, came out quite openly. Said, we wanted to keep him. We offered him a deal, but he wanted to move nearer home. Down south, which is what's happened. He got, it's always promising when you sign a player and they get a send off from the club that we're signing him through, and they've made a little going away video, and he wrote a little note saying it's been wonderful my time at Accrington and all that. So again, it's encouraging when that sort of thing happens. I knew little of him. Obviously, you look at videos and he scored a blinder in a couple of games, but apparently he's very, very attacking. He can play either wing back or number 10, he said in his interview. So that tells me that he likes to take players on, and he's a little box of tricks.
I think what's really exciting is you've got Godwin Malif, who's going to be very strong in 1v1s. So, and hopefully you're going to have someone on your left centre back who is similar. So that way you can get away with having two very attacking wing backs, because you've got your wide centre backs who are going to be very strong on defending those wide areas. So I think that's going to be really encouraging. So I suppose how many more additions do you think we're going to be looking at? Because you've already got a lot of players under contract.
Yeah, I think Kennedy, obviously, they're going to have to look to move some players on. They're going to try and get some players on moved on, because obviously, if you say the numbers are 20 round up first team players, and that's just going to be too many for that. Because I still think we're about 6 or 7, maybe even 8 short, because we've not signed anyone on loan yet, of actually the numbers that we want to be at. I still think he wants another couple of centre backs. He wants some strength there, and he wants some depth there, and I think he wants more experience than just to rely on the youth. I think we need an attacking 10 as well, whether he wants him to play a wide player or a number 10 role, whether he goes 4-3-3, 3-4-3 or 3-5-2. I think he wants those options there. So I think.
Do you think you'll cash in on Sadie Khan in order to incorporate a number 10?
Well, again, there's been lots of names in the rumours. Well, one of the rumours was Alistair Smith at Lincoln. Now, if that is something that does happen, then I think that is Khan moved on. If he goes, I know he's very highly thought of at Chesterfield. I'd be very surprised if Chesterfield are not, interested if he's up for it. I mean, someone to make a bit of money out of as well. So that could be an option. So I think Khan could be someone, because I think he nearly made a move in January, but I think injury and loss of form cost him that move. So he possibly could have something there. But I think another 10. I think we do need a number 9 as well, a proper experienced 9, a big, tall, 6'4"-esque, strong, experienced player. But I still think about 4 or 5 players and a little bit of fluff. And then I think we'll be good to start the season.
Let's hope so. I just wanted to touch actually on the head of football, Jamie Russell.
Yes.
Do you think he's an improvement on maybe the previous equivalent you've had in that sort of role?
Sandro, yes, I do. I think Sandro had this Moneyball idea. Where he would go around academies, spend quite a bit of money on these young academy players, bring them through, and hopefully there was, give them first team football and then sell them on at a profit. I think we had Scott Lindsey as a manager then, which he thought would be an ideal coach to bring these young players through. I think the idea was quite good. It just didn't work. We didn't sign the right players.
Do you know what, though? I think if you'd given Scott Lindsey a bit more time, I think it could have worked out.
Well, exactly that. I think I was quite harsh on Scott Lindsey at the time. I think the Swindon fans' mentality, in fairness to us, because obviously we just lost Ben Garner, and Scott Lindsey was his number 2.
Yeah.
And we just thought we'd gone for a cheap option to Bengana, which is immediately fans, when you think you employ the number 2.
Sure.
And we lost a lot of, you Jack Paynes would go in, McCurdy was clearly doesn't want to be there anymore. We lost a lot of the players that had done so well the previous season. And we thought the club was sort of, cutting costs left, right, and centre. And at home, he struggled to win games. Away from home was easier for him. And I think at the time he made some promises about free-flowing attacking football and winning games and being at the top of the league, and it wasn't quite working. I think if he went back, he might just take back a few of the words he said at the start of the season. But again, he was just finding his feet. And I think his success at Crawley was, a lot of that was to what he learned at Swindon, and he took from Swindon. He's got better and he's learned, and he's got to Crawley, and it's made him, I think it's a better fit for him than Swindon, because obviously he had less of expectations at Crawley, was just keep up. Whereas Swindon was, gets up.
Yeah.
And I think that he's just grown and it's just worked for him. And I'm happy for them. I think brilliantly. I think he's got a job there for life. And I think eventually he will become, or he'll get a League One club at some point. If Crawley struggle, someone will pick him up. So
I just worry that this sort of expectation for Swindon and the sort of the mentality of the club to sort of try and keep the fans happy right now could get in the way of the club making more sustainable progress. That's kind of the concern.
Could well be. I think they're just doing this whole with new beginnings, new starts, whole fresh everything at the club at the minute. Clem finally came out and did a press junket, and he finally came out and said, "Look, I'm really, really sorry about last season. I didn't." That's
something. At least
and it's nice he's done that. And there has been investment in the club. There has been clear thinking of something that we want to do. Obviously, Mark Kennedy's had a clear vision, and he's worked with Russell on that, and they've got targets which they are working on. And they, I think Kennedy has a big say in who we sign, and we'll just see what happens. I think this season, I'm cautiously optimistic because of our recent history of admin errors and things that have gone wrong. It could be swimmingly for 2-3 months, and then something hit an iceberg at some point. So I think that's where Swindon fans are at the minute. I think I'm encouraged by some of the signings that we make. I'm encouraged by the manager. I don't think that it's all going to be doom and gloom next year, which I really was fearful was going to be. I think Swindon fans also need to be realistic. I don't think that pushing, top 3 isn't realistic anyway at all. I think if we can just solidify, sort of like if we finish between 10th and 13th, and just be better and stronger and have something to develop on for next season or the following year, then, maybe have a crack then. That might be the way forward. We'll see how it goes. But I think cautiously optimistic, keep realistic in your expectations of where we are right now, because there's a lot of work still needs to be done to be put right. Clem's got a long way to go to win back the fans. You can't fix 2 years of neglect on 6 weeks. Even if it's just mistakes by him and he's done things wrong, there's a lot of question marks.
Yeah.
But as the last 6-7 weeks have gone, it's been okay because all the contract extensions have been signed. The players are brought in on paper are decent. The manager appointment is not blow your socks off, but solid. Maybe we're in for it may even be a dull season, but a bit of a cup run and a few good days out, and even if we are talking about some sort of decent finish at the end of the season till April or May, when we fade away at the end of the season, which I think is probably quite likely, that sort of season, then that's fine. we'll see where we are come next May in a better position than we are right now.
That makes sense. I think you've got to be realistic after what's gone before.
Where
was I? So with that in mind, you've set sort of mid-table, but with some progression in other areas, possibly on structural levels and all that kind of thing. So what are, to condense everything that we've discussed on this podcast so far, what are the big reasons that you'd say that make you think that you're going to meet your ambitions for this season?
I think that we have been proactive in the transfer market. We've signed players with experience at this level. Some of the players who've got out of this level, I think the ages are quite good as well. You know, players that we signed are either in mid-20s, a couple in sort of like one's in the early 30s, but they're all in their 20-something, which is a good age. So the experience to work with some of the younger players. We do have a lot of young players still at the squad, so that will help. I think we've got a manager who can who has a reputation of bringing a very well-drilled side. I think Swindon are going to be quite solid. I think we're going to probably see a few 1-1s, 0-0s. You know, well, I think the days of 5-3s are long gone now. I think Swindon are just going to be. I think Swindon are going to be unspectacular but well drilled, and I think that's where we are. And it may not be an unspectacular season, but it's me downside better than what we've seen previous.
And then, what are your reasons for doubt?
Previous years under this ownership, you know, there has been stuff in admin errors that's caused the club to go into embargoes where we've not been able to sign players for cash. Which is what we found out in January, which is why we had such a poor summer last summer. I think promises that weren't being kept. I hope that Clem keeps up the spending, and this is not just to keep us all quiet. So we buy season tickets again, and then he's going to disappear, and it's all going to fade away again. Something like that could be a thing. You know, there is big question marks over the ownership itself. And, you know, I hope he comes good to his promises. There is a sense of, you know, you talk to people who are in around the club, who work around the club. There is a sort of a buzz and an optimism that this, you know, it is getting better. So I just hope that is the case. But there is this cloud under this ownership because it's been so bad over the last 2 years. The first year was great, but the last two have been sort of like a steady decline, and you know, the communications have been poor, really bad, and you know, to the point that we think that he didn't want anything to do with the club anymore, and just like that. So you know, so that's you know, that's still there. I don't think Swindon fans are in the sleep be deluded that this is a new dawn and we're gonna all aboard HMS the league. I don't think any Swindon fans are like that, but I think I've all said this since last month. It's cautiously optimistic.
Yeah,
I think we can give ourselves optimism with the signings that we've made. So cautiously optimistic is the two words that I would use right now.
Cautiously optimistic. Okay, that makes sense. And then just you've sort of between, if you give me too early for prediction, obviously, because a lot can happen between now and the start of the season. But give me a number between 1 and 10 to denote, as you've sort of alluded to already, your level of optimism for the new season.
Wow. It depends how much it's improved. If I think 6.5. 6.5. Okay. I would say. I think it's which is a lot better than like 1.5 that I would have given you about 6-7 weeks ago. So I'm gonna say a 6.5. It's cautiously optimistic. I'm looking up rather than looking down, which is the right place to be.
That's good. All right. Well, on that note, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much, Ben, for your time. I really appreciate your insight on Swindon Town. Thanks to everybody for watching. This has been the EFL Debate summer deep dive on Swindon Town. Subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you again very soon.
Thank you.